Hi, it's Trent Clark, CEO of Leadershipity, serial entrepreneur, longtime professional baseball coach, international speaker. Most people know me because I coached in 3 World Series. I am with today on our Winners Find a Way show with Alyson Hodson. Say hello, Alyson.
Hey Trent, how's it going?
It's going awesome. Thanks so much. I'm super excited to have you here. For people on the Winners Find a Way show, we are always talking about those challenges, and I bring on highly successful people that have seen some tough times, amazingly, right? For people to rise, I think they have to go through some down times and go through some valleys. So if you're in that place, you've faced stiff adversity, felt like losses are mounting, and you need to find a better way, well, I think you came to the right place. Because whether you're already an entrepreneur, an athlete, business leader, just looking to start your journey today to being elite, this is the perfect podcast and show for you. So I am super excited to talk to Alyson. Alyson is a personal friend of mine. I've worked with Alyson in the past. We are also fellow entrepreneur organization members. She's a longtime entrepreneur and an absolute world beater, and I love her. And so it's so awesome. First of all, let's go through a little bit of your background, Alyson. Before we do that, tell people where they can find you. Where do we find
Sure.
Alyson Hodson?
Yeah, I mean, the easiest place to find me is on our website for our company. So company is ZAG, and so it's a2zag.ca, A-T-O-Z-A-G.ca, or ZAG, depending on what your dialect is. You can find me on LinkedIn at Alyson Hodson. You can find me on Instagram at Alyson Jane, and you can also find me on Twitter, but my handle is a little bit complicated. It's got some
Mm.
underscores in it, but yeah, you'll find it on LinkedIn. There's links there.
Yes, and as you can see her name, Alyson, that really helps me
Good
kind of
point.
separate her out a little bit. She spells it uniquely. A couple highlights about your background, Alyson. I love, like, very involved in your Edmonton community, your company and business. Your marketing group, ZAG, as you mentioned, is in Edmonton, Alberta, and that's a province that has been through the ringer over the last like 12 years, right? Really, since the economic downturn, it has not been easy, and there's a lot of things. And of course, you've owned this business all through that, right? So, an EO member, as we talked about, entrepreneur organization member, that's a worldwide group of over 12,000 members. Hugely involved with your community economic development club, chamber of commerce, certainly the downtown business association, like all these things. Tell us a little bit about that background.
Yeah, it's always been really important for me to be involved in Edmonton, in the city that I live in. I know that when ZAG started in 2009, I was actually in a place where I was leaving the company I was with. I was looking at moving to other cities. I was looking in Toronto. I was looking in Vancouver. I was looking to kind of get out of Edmonton and do something a little bit more interesting. And that's when I changed my thinking. I changed my thinking to, I'm actually going to stay here. I'm going to get involved. I'm going to change things. So instead of being one of those people that just complains about what I don't like
Mm,
about my city or what's going on in the economy, or why our city isn't as cool as some other cities are, or why the opportunities don't exist for young people, I thought, why don't I just get involved and try to change it? So
mm.
that change in mentality really led me to go down the path of joining several boards and being able to actually start influence change.
Wow, that is awesome. And I think you've done that, by the way. If that was a goal of yours at 29 years old, knowing what I know about you, your brand, your key, and all your employees that you employ all throughout Canada, you've done that. You've done that for Edmonton. I know many of the people that are involved with other committees you've been involved with, and they rave about your investment time efforts in the city. So that's super exciting. And a little shout out to Cheryl Watson, who always speaks highly of you. And I think Cheryl's running for mayor, right?
She is.
She's
She
running for the
is.
mayor of Edmonton, and
Yeah.
Cheryl's a fellow
She's going to win
world
it.
beater. Yeah, she's gonna win it. A fellow world beater, which again, another passionate leader, driven to make change in their community. I love what you just said about, a lot of people complain about what's going on around them. Very few people actually do something about it. So kudos, Alyson Hodson. I think that's pretty awesome. But let's, Edmonton, born and raised. I mean, that moment. What do you think that was that shifted as a longtime Edmontonian, like, hey, the grass is greener on the other side, maybe, right? At another town, another city, to saying, no, my roots are here. I'm planted. I'm going to do something. Was there a significant event that happened right there?
Did I lose you?
Yeah, it's total blank out right there. Yes, you just lost me entirely, but yes, that was a minor blank. I'm gonna fix that one in editing for sure. And then,
Sorry.
yeah, no, that was my fault. I don't know what
All of a
happened.
sudden you're just frozen. It might have been me. I don't know. It said, yeah.
No,
So
it,
anyway.
it literally, you were gone. So the question again was
Oh,
your commitment as an Edmontonian, the big shift in that mindset of being a mid late 20s. Um, and I think this perception that you had, which I think is huge, is at that age, I think most of us are the grass is greener on the other side, right? It's going to look good somewhere else. I could fit in, I could plug into Toronto or Vancouver, all these things. And so, but you decided to stay. Tell me a little bit about, was there an event that changed? What shifted in your mindset there?
I wish I could tell you that there was. I don't remember there being anything specific. It was kind of exciting to think about going out for a while of the city. I grew up in Stony Plain. I live in Edmonton. I've lived in downtown Edmonton for over a decade, and I was kind of excited about going somewhere else. And I don't remember what the mind shift was, but I think part of it probably had to do with just not sitting around and grumbling. I sit on the spectrum, and it's about solutions, it's about moving forward. And maybe that was part of what drove it, but I don't remember a catalyst moment.
Good. All right, let's take you back to Stony Point here for a second. Tell
Yeah,
us,
Stony Plain.
I'm gonna take you, what is it?
Stony Plain.
Stony Plain. I'm sorry. Stony
Yeah.
Plain. Those two words, stony and plain. I don't know. Does those work together? So, all right. So, Stony Plain, you're a kid out there. Was there an impact pivot point that said, hey, was this on your ultimate list of things to do, Alyson? Run a company, own a company, be a CEO. What was young Alyson thinking? What was your drive? Was there something that shifted you that said, hey, tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah. So I was not on this path my whole life. That is definitely the case. So I grew up in Stony Plain, small community, kindergarten through grade 9 in the same school. And for those that know a bit about my history, I didn't have the best childhood. I was bullied pretty severely in school. I was a pretty bad kid. I was in the principal's office almost every day. Just didn't really
That's,
have kind of the right path ahead of me. I
are you
was
bucking the
very
system?
opinionated. I'm sure. Yeah. I'm sure you'll be surprised. I was very opinionated. Shocking, I know. So I really had a really tough childhood. To be honest, I was an only child, and grew up. My mom was a single mom. She was doing the best she could, to work and make sure that we had what we needed. So it was there were rough years. And when I kind of went to the high school, which was in Spruce Grove, so Stony Plain town, Spruce Grove also small town, a little bigger, not too far away. So ended up going to the high school in Spruce Grove, met some new people, melded a couple schools together, got on a bit of a different path. And by the time high school came around, honestly, I skipped a lot. I failed a lot of grades. I didn't do so well. And it wasn't, this is, to me at the time, I thought it was because I wasn't smart, but it was just because I wasn't applying myself, which I'm sure a lot of parents would say, when your kids don't focus in high school, or school in general. So once I got through that, grade 12, I actually didn't graduate high school. I had failed enough grades that I was 5 credits short. I always remember the fact that I really wanted to finish Math 30, and I won't get into the details around it, but I kept kind of taking a couple courses over and over and opted out of some electives to get Math 30, and ended up failing it twice, the second time by I don't know, I think I had 48% or something. So didn't end up getting those 5 credits. And I always will put a lot of the path of my success to my principal at the time, because I was working in Spruce Grove after that. I took a year off after high school. It was kind of what am I going to do? I don't have a diploma. Where do I go from here? And, my principal ended up coming into where I was working, and he's like, "Oh, what are you doing?" And I told him a bit of the story about how I hadn't graduated, and he said, "Why don't you come into my office next week and we'll have a chat?" So it's a long story, but he ended up working with me, and I got my diploma, and then from there ended up going to NAIT, taking business, moving in from night school because again I didn't have great grades, getting into day school the second year, and then going into university. I actually almost went down the path of becoming a lawyer. That was always my passion.
Mm.
But just again, I'm not going to get too into it. It's a long story, but just ended up not going that route. And yeah, here I am. It was certainly not like young Alyson was like, I'm going to own a business one day and do all these things. It was more just happened.
Well, let's talk about some of that perseverance, right? Let's talk about some of the challenge of that because as you described that, first of all, you would have been a great lawyer. Like I would hire you to represent me in a minute. All right. I hope I don't need one, but if I do, so the second one is like, when you talk about that, it just sounds like, I get this picture of you kind of pushing the rock uphill from like fifth grade on, like it's always work, right? It's always something. And, it's never easy. And and by the way, I mean, you're kind of choosing your rock and you didn't choose an easy one either, right? Like you're grabbing big stones to push, not the little ones, because you're making it a little harder on yourself too, if that's fair. But let's talk about this because I, you don't you think that path gave you resilience for all the stuff you do now?
Oh, 100%. I wouldn't trade any of it.
Most of your response there. So let's pivot. So Allison, I love the McChesney and Sean Covey from the Four Disciplines of Execution. They made this quote famous: "Winners, when shown data that they are losing, find a way to win." That is one of the biggest things. So tell me about a time you were up against it. You were losing, found a way to come back and win. Down but not out. I mean, you got a great personal story already about, hey, I didn't choose this easy path of education on the college track and then came back and went through all the way back through. Tell me about another instance, maybe of business or otherwise.
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to give a business story. There aren't a lot, and maybe that's just because of the way that I process things. So I don't feel like there was ever a time that I was down but not out. I'm sure there were. It's not like it's been easy. It's not like
Yes.
it's been this like, great brick road, yellow brick road. But again, I think it's just the I can't think of a time in business when I was like, wow, all the chips are down and, I really got to claw my way out of this. I think there's been lots of times that, when you talk about perseverance, we've had a couple partners leave over the years. We've
Yeah.
had, large clients that have left the business, which obviously leave a hole and they need to be replaced. You'll have, HR where, you've got someone, and I think you probably, especially in your business, know the saying, no one's replaceable, right? They aren't, or sorry, everyone's replaceable.
Yes.
They are, even me, right? So the first couple times you go through a really pivotal person leaving your business, it's unnerving, right? But I guess the reason I maybe not having the best answer to this is I can't see I would say any of those were down but not out. I think they would just say they were just bumps, and they were bumps that we got through and that I got through and the team got through, and here we are.
Well, let's talk real quickly about the last year, right? Let's talk.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about you got this great culture. Everyone's inside a Zag. Great little downtown office. Very active community. People got their happy hour spots. Like they're comfortable. They like going to work at Zag. You're a creative group. You've got a great client list. And then all of a sudden, everyone goes remote. Everyone's shut down. Our client's gonna call. Do they need work? Tell me about what's going through your mind because my understanding is you've continued to grow through this. Is that accurate?
Mm-hmm.
No stoppage. No,
Yeah.
like, oh, woe is me. Oh, this is going to be so bad. I got to stop. You've figured it out, pivoted, and did it. Tell me a little bit about what you were thinking there.
Yeah. There certainly were early days in this last year and a bit. When everything happened, right, and the world stopped. There were times, as a business owner, it goes through your head, especially in marketing, which often can be, depending on the business owner or corporation's mentality, really important in downtimes, or the first thing to cut. And
That's right.
there's a lot more
That's
of
right.
there's a lot more of the first thing to cut, unfortunately.
Yes. Yeah.
And because it was so uncertain, there was a lot of fear early on, right? Just in terms of, what does this mean? Are clients gonna, stop working with us because they don't have any money? Where are they at? There was a lot of concern that I had for my clients, because I worry about them as, part of the family, right? So
Hmm.
if they're not doing well, are they going to go out of business? Can they continue to employ their employees? So there
Yes.
were some pretty, scary days. Everyone working from home wasn't as much of a concern, and that's because we had a couple floods the year before, I guess,
Mm.
luckily. So we all
Yeah.
had to work from home
Luckily.
for some time. Yeah,
Yeah.
believe it. Why would you think that? But
Right.
it actually ended up being kind of interesting, because it was like, well, we already did this, obviously not for this long, but we had the infrastructure, we were set up.
Yes.
So then you're right. Then it was just the culture piece, right? And how do we keep things going? How do we keep the culture and the wheels turning? Because a lot of people will say, how can you be creative on a Zoom call? How has that
Hmm.
affected brainstorms? How has that affected client collaboration? And I would say it has, but I would not say to the degree that would be alarming in the
Hmm.
grand scheme of things. I think my biggest stress in this past year around everything has just been, mental health, right? For the team,
Hmm.
for clients, for everything, because everyone's got a different situation. They're homeschooling their children. They live alone. They want to be home. They don't want to be home. Like, everyone's in a different place, and everyone's dealing with those stresses differently. They've got a spouse that's gotten laid off. They're struggling to make ends meet. So that's been something definitely to persevere on, because it's an ongoing. You got to do a lot to keep
Mm.
people's spirits up, and keep them, feeling comfortable.
For sure. Let's pivot to you and talk a little bit about, what do you think is the 1%? What do you think, your superpower that separates you? I mean, there's very few people that have done what you've done, especially at a pretty young age in the 20s, and decided, hey, I'm going to start my own marketing firm globally. You've got North American wide clients, worldwide, all sorts of things, which by the way, you were doing before, like somewhat remotely, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, so talk to me about the one superpower that Alyson Hodson has that continues to help her lead.
You know, what I think it is. I can actually trace this back to a moment in time, and
Nice.
it was it was early in my career, early enough, when I was working for another company, and my boss at the time had thrown me into a situation, very much like, go present to this board of directors for this really large company, publicly traded. Here's the content, go present. And I remember my, like, heart just being in my throat. I was like, how am I going to do
Yeah,
this? Like, this is a board of directors. Like, what they're going to judge me? Like, I'm not going to be able to do this well. Like, I'm going to fail, right? Like, I mean, those things go through your head. They go through my head anyways.
for everybody's.
And yeah. And, I went and I did the presentation. I don't uh, remember it, other than being terrified and just being like, don't screw this up, because you're going to A, look stupid, which was my biggest concern, and B, like, get fired, concern number two. Um, and it was actually serendipitous, because I was headed on a trip right after that meeting, to Vegas. I had a holiday booked, so it was kind of like hi, right? Like, it's just like, you have the meeting and boom, I'm going to Vegas.
Yeah,
And I
yeah.
remember being at the airport, and the CEO of that company, and I'll never forget, called me, and he said, I just wanted to let you know you did a really great job in that presentation. Like, thanks for coming, and thanks for doing that, and thanks for being a part of what was a really important presentation to our company. And up until then in my career, I had been very focused around who a person was, right? You're a janitor, you're a CEO, you're like,
Mm,
whatever it is.
yeah.
And it was that moment, and I don't know, I guess, everyone processes things differently, that I realized that it didn't matter who someone was in title. It didn't matter if I thought they were scary. It didn't matter if I was talking to a room full of 500, important people, or a room full of 500 people that some people may classify as less important for whatever reason that they would do
Mm-hmm.
that. Everyone's just a person, and I'm a person. And I think that after that moment, and, I haven't even thought about this until you asked it, but when you talk about a superpower, I very rarely worry about those things anymore. And it doesn't mean
Mm,
I don't prepare, and it doesn't mean I'm not concerned about showing up as my best or failing, because those things drive me.
for
But I
sure.
think my superpower was just that moment of people are just people. And, you know, they're going to be good people or they're going to be crappy people, and they're going to treat you well or they're going to treat you not well. But don't let that worry you. And I think that that
Mm.
helps not only with dealing with, new clients, suppliers, vendors, the team, whoever I come across. I just really like meeting people and dealing with people. And I just don't let it intimidate me. I think it helps. I don't get in my head about it.
Yeah, for me, I think it's a great lesson for everybody that's listening in a great itty word that we teach, right? Which is humanity, right? Like people are people. We bleed the same. And I think that lesson right there is probably one of the most powerful. We've talked about so many prejudices in today's environment of ageism and, racism and sexism. And there's a lot of isms going on, right? And not the good
Mm-hmm.
one, not the good isms, And so we talk about like these are going on and happening, and yet if people just looked at that, I mean, I think that's so critical about, and I felt that too. I felt that in professional baseball, right? Where you see people making, just like the CEO, you got a person making, $2.5 million in his role, and he's a big responsible person who has take tons of responsibility and tons of ownership. We think like, oh, that person's different than us. Except it turns
Mm-hmm.
out, they put their pants on one leg at a time, just like the rest of us. And, they've earned that, and they've done it, and it should be admired for sure for some of the work. But, one of the things I find probably one of our greatest accomplishments in baseball is going to a world championship with people from somewhat of, 9 different countries and 12 different cultures and all sorts of different ages, backgrounds, upbringings, all these things. And yet you come together and you're like, hey, we have this one goal and we all got to do it together. Like, well, I don't want to do it with that person because I don't like them. Because they're from the wrong country. Like, what? Like, what are you talking about? Like, we have to perform together. And it's like, oh, I'm not going to throw the ball to the third baseman because they're from a different country than I mean, that makes zero sense, right? That's not how
Yeah.
humanity works. And so I love that. I think there's also a level of, coming from what you came from the bullying that sets a precedent in how humanity is. Because bullying is about power, right? It's about you're not something I am, or insecurity, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I think you finding that humanity guiding light, I think is huge. I think it's gigantic. Your thoughts?
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. I just hadn't thought about that for a long time. And I do think that it's huge. I think that being able to look at everything through the lens of we're all human. I mean, it might be, I don't know what they call it. They call it imposter syndrome or whatever it is, right? Like people like you who I really respect, a lot of people that I deal with that I really respect, when I hear, you're the 1%, or you've done something amazing, or wow, like look what you've built. I just I never really think about it.
Mm,
To me, it's just like I have a business. I've, worked with some great people to grow some
yep.
great things, and we are united, and I guess I just don't look at it that way. So to me, it's not always about ego, and it's just more about I'm just doing the right thing, or I think I'm doing the right thing. It's certainly not always the right thing, and have
Trying.
had missteps over the
Yeah.
years, like
Yes.
doing the best I can with what I've been given. Like
I love
that's all
that.
anyone can do right now.
I also think that you and I share this love of travel, and that's another one
Oh
for
yeah.
great lessons in humanity, right? Like thicken up your
Hmm.
passport, find out how other cultures live, what they think is valuable, how their families operate, like right. It's all these different things, and those are just great learnings. Again, right back to the human race. Like, turns out people just aren't that much different, right? Like we have
It's
goals.
perspective, right?
Yeah.
Like, do you think it's perspective? Like, I think of like I chair the Make-A-Wish board for Northern
Mm,
Alberta, and we've since moved over because we've merged with Children's Wish, so we're now an advisory board. But I remember going to an international conference where the Make-A-Wish chapters came from all over the world,
hmm.
and I think that a lot of people think, I shouldn't say a lot of people, I've heard from people that it's like, oh, Make-A-Wish is like the Disney wishes, right? Like that's what we get related to a lot of the time, or it's celebrity wishes, right?
Yeah.
And there's also like, you can ask for something, you can ask to meet someone, you can ask for an experience. There's different types of wishes. And I'll never forget talking to some of the other countries, that maybe don't have as much, or they're not as privileged, as America or Canada. And some of the wishes that they shared just would like just get you right here. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
kids just wishing for shoes.
Yeah.
I just want a pair of shoes.
Right.
Like
Yes.
I just want to have a
Yes.
picnic with my
Yeah.
friends.
Yeah.
Like just gets you right in the heart. I mean,
Yeah.
it puts perspective into humanity and how lucky we all are. Like, and
Yeah.
we're all lucky in different ways. Everyone has their own stuff, right? Can't
Yeah.
always see it, but everyone has their own stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't want to talk too deep about that because you'll have me in
Yeah, this
tears.
is getting like really
Like, yeah,
deep now.
don't
This is getting
start.
deep. Let's
Don't,
go back to
yeah,
business.
I know, because those are heartstrings right there. Like, and having a little relationship with that, being involved in a couple things with the Make a Wish. I've just heard those. I've heard those stories in the past. And you're right, from our first world North American. I say in North America we don't really have any needs. We have wants, right? Because there's
Mm-hmm.
so much. And yeah, that one that sticks with me is one of the kids asking for a dress for his mom for his service, for his funeral service, because they wouldn't have.
Oh,
And I was like, I was I was like, wow, like we're so blessed, right? And so,
yeah.
um, but let's talk a little bit about. I want to give a couple minutes for Q&A here at the end here, but
Mm-hmm.
what do you think? People get down, right? You go through hard times. You're talking. I think you talked about a good point about mental health and the challenge of doing something very differently. You and I, we know the disc a little bit. We get involved with that, and there's a lot of folks that their personal styles, they don't love change. They can do it, but they don't love it. And man, if you don't love it, like I'm changed out. Like I've had so much change in the last 12 months. Like, hey, I need a break from change, right? So
Yeah.
let's talk about if someone is kind of in that spot where things aren't going well. Is there a value or a belief or an action, something that you've taken that have you found success in that says, hey, I can ground myself, I can get this going back in the right direction doing this. Do you have a recommendation?
Yeah, I think that we've been going through a lot as a company, to try to keep connection with each other, to try to do fun little things virtually, as much as possible, to keep the door open for people to connect and have some of those difficult conversations. We're working on some other things that we'll be rolling out in the next month or so, just in terms of how to, what you're talking about, those tools and how to
Yeah,
deal with mental health, and
yeah,
putting a little bit more support towards our team. I
love
think
that.
everyone's different, right? Like I think that, and that's why we're doing some of the disc work right now, which is personality related work, right? To understand that there's going to be conflict, there's going to be times of
Yeah,
conflict. We want to create psychological safety within the workplace and within our clients, just because there's a lot of conversations we have with our clients, obviously being in the marketing and communications and advertising space. And we want to create those safe conversations. So I think that by doing some of that personality work and understanding where the other person is coming from, and like you said, maybe, some of us may internalize, some of us may be a little bit more external with how we're feeling.
yeah,
Some people may retreat at conflict. Some people might, get quick to anger. All those things affect our mental health, right? And how we're dealing with our day to day. So, I think our biggest learning is just keep paying attention to it.
yes,
Make sure that you're empathetic to it. You know, we still have to run a business. We still have to make sure that
Yes.
everyone is employed. But trying to balance that human piece with it too has been really important through the pandemic.
As you describe it, I hear openness. Like you have an openness like for the firm. Like, hey, let's not talk about it. It's open. Let's have those conversations. Let's talk about that. I love that. So let's
And I
quickly.
think it takes, yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I
No,
think it
good.
takes time to build too, right? Like, I wish I could say that, like, we just, for
For sure.
me, like my style, like I literally, like, let's talk about it. And I've realized that that scares some people. They're like, whoa,
Oh
what do you
yeah.
mean? Like,
Oh
you're,
yeah.
you're my boss. Like, you want to talk to me? It's
For
like,
sure.
and
For
that's hard
sure.
for me. And I'm sure you deal with other people like this, right, Trent? Like, it's, I'll remember I forget who it was, but there was someone that brought up this. It was through EO actually that brought up this example of, as owners and CEOs, we come in with he called it our nice wand or sword, right? We come in and we're just like, I just want to know how you feel. I'm so nice and so happy. And we don't realize that that's like
Yeah.
terrifying everyone. So deep
Yes.
down, we think like we're really trying to be nice and help and we want to, but some of the people around us, depending on their personality and the relationship we have and how safe they feel, they're like, whoa,
Mm.
like, whoa. So it's been tricky, right? To navigate that too, because you want to help and you want to be there, but everyone's going to receive that differently. So it's a major work in progress is kind of the point I'm getting to. It's not like, everything's great and everyone's open,
Yeah.
because it's a lifelong journey
Yeah.
as a business.
I'm glad you cut me off because I think that's really important to say. I don't think it's easy, and I would say that's openness is a simple term that takes a lot of trust to establish, right? So if we
Mm-hmm.
haven't done that, and I know what you're saying, what I hear you saying is that you've worked your tail off to establish that trust. It didn't come overnight. Like if I had to come in the first day and say, "Hey, listen, we're an open environment. Everyone can say anything they want," I'd be like, "Yeah, right. Sure, we can." Like, who are you? You're like, and you're exactly. That's not how it works. Oh, you can be open because I said you can.
Mm-hmm.
We're gonna put our toe in the water on that, right? And like, hey, I'm gonna test this
Yeah.
with little things, and then we'll get deeper and deeper, and I'll go in. Oh, I might get in up to my waist. I'm feeling comfortable. Look at this. I'm not going to the deep end or anything, right? Like, I can still walk out of here. And so I think that that trust, I think, is really a key component to get to where you want to go. And I don't know if that's I don't know if that's an end zone either. I think that's kind of a never ending journey because we know that fluctuates up and down a little bit as people
It
move in and out of the organization, things happen.
Right, people coming and going, and it's interesting when you use the analogy of like wading in and that piece, because frankly, as much as you can work to build that, you can do one thing, one misstep, and it's erased,
Yeah.
right? Like, because it's fragile, right? And
Yeah.
it should be fragile because it's
Yep.
trust, and people spend a lot of their lives at work, right? Like, it's
Hmm.
like there's the whole saying, like, you spend more time at work than you do with your family. Like before COVID, now you do both. Now you're with your work and your family all day.
Well, I
But
think
yeah, it takes trust, it takes time.
yeah, I think those two words, like another itty, right? Integrity and trust. Those are one of those things you work so hard to build up time. One thing and right back down to ground zero, just like that. And
Mm-hmm.
then you got to go back and build it all back up. It's like the water fully came out of the pool. Like, wait, no. I
Totally.
just wait a minute. What do you mean? Like, oh yeah, like I'm not getting it at all now anymore, unless we're skateboarding. So,
Yeah.
all right. So let's talk. Let me pivot to a question here. I love this question. I had this question one of my first couple of shows, and I've used it a lot because it comes a lot. But the best battle that you've ever conquered in your lifetime. You've had lots of successes, you've had lots of wins, but what's the best battle that you overcame, Alyson?
Battle. Wow, such strong words.
Yeah, right. Because
Battles.
when you're in it, it's tough. Like you're going to it's the fight, right?
Yeah. Oof, that's a tough one. I mean, I think it's one that's ongoing. Like, I don't mean to keep skirting your questions. Like, I can't say like that was a battle that I won. Like, I don't have anything like that. But I do think it's the ongoing battle of trying to balance, doing good and meaningful work to drive clients' businesses forward, because that's really the whole reason we exist.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And balancing that with, a highly motivated, creative and driven team, with a lot of really great ideas. Like, that's the battle every day. Like, that's the trenches every day, is that kind of, client team relationship in the advertising marketing business, to gain the trust of the client, to keep the team motivated, to keep putting the ideas out. I used this example the other day in another interview that I was doing. And I said, I can only imagine how difficult it is as, someone who's creative, having an idea, pitching it out to a client and getting shut down time and time again. And it happens, right? Like, for lots of reasons, like don't have the budget,
Yeah.
too risky,
Yeah.
Whatever it is. And to keep showing up your A game every day. So, I mean, that's the battle every day, is balancing that, I think.
All right, let me ask you a mirror question. You're pretty good at self-awareness, pretty good at knowing, hey, who Alyson Hodson is. When you look in the mirror, you see some things. What do you think that others don't see when they look in the mirror that they need to take a harder look on?
Oh, wow. These are tough questions.
I didn't bring you on for the
I
easy
mean,
stuff, Alyson.
yeah, I
Like,
know. Gosh. Uh, yeah, I think you're right. Like, I think, I know where my missteps are. I know that I come across, I can be direct. I can, I'm a high D, that, like, I'm as
yep,
far out on the D spectrum of dominance that you can get. And I don't waver to steadiness or influence.
yep.
Those are things people see. I think maybe what they don't see, I had someone say to me the other day that it would be important sometimes to share with the team the struggles of a business owner, the struggles of, what you go through. And I'm a believer that that's my job, right? Like, my job is to make sure that everyone's fed, everyone's paid, we've got good work coming in the door that's, fun and meaningful. So maybe what people don't see sometimes is that I do seem pretty cool and calm and collected, I think. Like, maybe I'm not self-aware about that. But I think I don't let people see the stress, I
Yeah.
guess. And there's a lot of it. So maybe that's part of it, like, that maybe people don't see that because I
Yeah,
put up a bit of a,
yeah, we could hide that,
everything's
right?
fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love the
So,
I love that responsibility and ownership you just talked about, and most people don't. We have tough conversations a lot, and you and I may have even had this conversation in the past. But, like, if you have 30 people in your organization, you're making decisions for 120. 100 people, it's 400. The average family is 4. So, these are these people's careers now, and this is how we pay for food, our car, our education for our children. All these things are provided by my career. And so every decision an owner makes isn't just affecting that one person, it's affecting the entire family, and it's significant. So there's an ownership and a responsibility behind that I think most owners feel. They really feel that responsibility and want to make decisions. And I don't think it's one of those things you can wear on your sleeve, like, I'm panicked to make the wrong decision and I'm going to be manic about getting it right, because if I get it wrong, everybody's kids aren't going to get clothes. Like, well, that's not exactly going to happen. But, like, we have to understand that there is a downstroke to that responsibility. And that's interesting how that affects you. And I honor that. That's a tough one. That's a good one.
And it's not just, keeping people employed. It's the effect that you have on people's lives when they're employed with you, right?
Yes.
So whether someone's with you for 6 months because it's not a fit for whatever reason, whether they're with you for, 9 years and they've chosen to have that part of their journey with you, you just hope whatever that is, that it left them or leaves them better, and that was the right experience in their journey. Because, like, we touch so many, even, like, again, outside of the team, clients, right? Like,
Yeah.
they choose to work with us, that affects them one way or another, hopefully to the better. But there's a lot of, I always make the joke that we're not saving babies, because we're not, but there is also a lot of responsibility in how we touch people's lives every day. And so that's a big responsibility.
Yeah, and your clients, big reach. I mean, this is marketing. That's their whole idea, is get big reach, right? And so there is a big responsibility behind that. All right, it's time for the best way to win. Is there something that you'd like to share with our listeners that we did not touch on today about finding a way to win, facing adversity, continuing on that journey to be a lead? Something there that you're thinking?
Yeah, the one thing maybe we didn't touch on, and as much as I say that I don't maybe show everybody that it can be tough sometimes, I certainly have a group of people in my life that I can count on when I need to have, some decompress or to talk about things. And I think that, when you talk about perseverance and all those things, surround yourself with the right people. Make sure that you've got the right support system, and don't be afraid to ask for help. Like,
Mm.
it's not a sign of weakness or vulnerability, in my opinion. It's a sign of being smart and realizing when you need to say, hey, I need help with this, I'm in over my head, whatever that might be. And just surround yourself with those people. I think it makes the journey not only easier but a lot more enjoyable when you're not doing it alone.
Love that. That's awesome. Great share. Because I think a lot of people do miss that as CEOs. Like, if you're not a publicly traded company, often the CEO is the last stop, or the owner, and there's no one to answer to. Like, hey, is this a good idea, Allison? I don't know, but I'm doing it. Like, you don't have to,
Yeah,
quote unquote,
hope it works out.
always, yeah, bounce that idea off going, well, I'm going to own the responsibility ultimately, but you don't get a yes or no from someone else, right? This is no, we cannot do that. So I love that. I think that's a crucial one. So again, tell them where they can find you, Allison, before we finish up our last part.
Yeah, I think best place to find me, and Trent, thanks for pointing it out at the beginning, Alyson Hodson, Hodson, because lots of people put a G in the end in Hodson. So Alyson Hodson, I would go to our website. So the website for ZAG is atozag.ca or cag.ca. And then you can find me on LinkedIn at Alyson Hodson. You can find me on Instagram at Alyson Jane. And you can also find me on Twitter. But again, it's a tricky handle. It's got some underscores in it. So just go to the website or LinkedIn. You'll find me from there.
There you go. Love it. All right. Follow the show.
I should have never jumped on that handle.
Follow the show on YouTube Live and many more videos on the Leadershipity channel. We're on Instagram and Twitter at Trent M. Clark or Leadershipity. You can find me. Make sure to look for our upcoming book, The Pyramid of Leadershipity. You can DM or email me on any of those social media links. But for sure, if you enjoyed today's episode and all our episodes, please continue to listen and rate us 5 stars. Work hard to find the 1%ers and some good interviews for everyone to glean some advice. And this one, of course, is no different. Let's finish, Allison, with your verse. What's your quote? What is your go-to, like, hey, when things are kind of getting at you and you need to ground yourself? You've got these people, which I think was really a great advice. You've got people that you surround yourself. What is one of those things that you may read or come about that gets you back into your mode? Hey, I got to get focused and get grounded.
Trust your gut.
Trust your gut. Yeah.
My gut never fails me. It's actually uncanny.
Really? That's confidence, people. Right? I love it. So I will tell you, and I've told Alyson this before too, I don't believe in gut. Now, so I do believe in Alyson trusting her gut. Now, how I define gut, okay, how I define gut is Alyson has a great experience. She's been through many different things, and she gleans like a sponge. She gets every experience and like throws the sponge on and gets everything out of it that she can, good or bad, right? Good or bad. And she takes it and she empties it in the bucket and goes, oh, I'll be saving that. So she has this buckets full of gut, right? Of all these experiences. So she goes, oh, this is happening. She goes, bucket number 4. I remember that gut experience, right? I believe she goes right back to it because there's been committees, peer learning, there's been education, there's been trials and errors of the company and as a worker and learning to be a follower before you were a leader, right? And all those experience. And if I could say something about a superpower about you, Alyson, it's just that every experience you get you absolutely maximize the learning, and you maximize it win or lose. Most people, in my opinion, most people really learn when they lose, right? They're like, oh my gosh, what did we do wrong? I got to figure that out. We fixed it. But when we win, we're like, oh, hey, just another client, got another, $100,000 job in the door. Like, hey, we're doing awesome. Like, look at us. We're so good. But breaking down, like, why did we win? Why are we going to win again? We keep doing this, we'll win more. We could even get better doing this. Hey, if it was $100,000, how come it wasn't $250,000? What could we do to get that? And always looking, and you have it, right? The hashtag, how can we do it better? Hashtag, how can we do it better? Like, that is Alyson for me. My quote, by the way, was given to me by a great friend. You can have results or excuses, not both. Arnold Schwarzenegger quote given to me by my great friends at Zag, right? ATO, A to Z, A to Zag. They are they gave me that quote for a Christmas gift because they know I am about performance beats kind of BS, right? And we can have results or we can have excuses. You can't have both. So I love that about you. It's one of the things that I also truly admire about you and how you've come along your people and serve them, Alyson. So pretty awesome. For everyone, thank you for joining us today. Looking forward to our next week. We're on every Friday, 12:30 Eastern, 9:30 a.m. Pacific, live on our Leadershipity channel. We have always wonderful guests. Join us each and every Friday and listen in. You can always hear them back on our Leadershipity or our podcast. Thank you for being with us today. Alyson, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me, Trent. Take care. Bye-bye.